Hey guys, VaulSC here. I want to take you through a game that I played recently against Old Dominion. It's, of course, 100 Kingdoms versus OD at the local game day. Finally got around to painting and assembling another 3 stands of Household Guards. So running the big turtle brick of the 3x3 9-stand regiment, which we've been immensely looking forward to. Playing against old OD opponent coming back after a little bit of a break, and we may as well just jump straight into the lists. Or even just the scenario first. This game was going to be on the mission Off Balance. So there's really just the 2 circular zones in the center, which are worth 2 each, or +1 if you've got both of them at the same time. 4 for the 2 objective markers on the other side of the table, and 2 for the Warlord. So mostly, the game that we're about to play is going to come down to controlling those 2 circular zones you see in the middle of the screen there. I've surrounded them with forests and hills. And of course, you can see the couple of little objectives which don't really come into play unless your opponent is leaving you to your own devices and not putting a lot of pressure on you. Whoops, picked up the wrong thing. You can even see the little off-balance sheet down the bottom right there. So, what lists are we going to be seeing for this game? As advertised, I am going to be running the 8 Household Guard plus Noble Lord for a total of 9 stands if we include the character. Really love Household Guard in this new era of 100 Kingdoms because they are just sort of cheap enough that you can still have a bunch of other regiments in your army. And they still have support 3, and they can get class 3 from Armsmaster, so you can pump out a lot of attacks and really focus your force really into a very small concentration, I should say. But there are so many little buffs you can stack on top of them. Obviously, these guys are getting the +1 to scoring from the resolve bonus as per Relentless Drills. They are always inspired if they are 5+ regiment. Again, from the faction global rules, the Noble Lord is giving them reroll 6s on professional troops, of course, with when you're clashing, so not against shooting or anything or impacts. On top of that, they have the Indomitable from the Theist Priest being the Dynastic ally, so they have Divine Purpose, they have the Indomitable there, so Divine Purpose lets them move faster and charge faster because of the spell going on them for that one turn. Speaking of which, the Theist Priest is going to be able to give them the Spirit Shine, so Blessed for 1 turn, really, really helpful. So there's really a lot going for them. I've made them Fearless, which I think is just really cool because their base resolves 3, and when you've got so many stands in your regiment, you can go up to resolve 5 initially, and denying your opponent from reducing that with Terrifying is actually quite helpful. Elysian Fragment, of course, because there's going to be, hopefully, that one combat where you're up against something that's defense 3 or 4, you pop the Fragment, and then you're attacking with 8 stands multiplied by 3 supports plus the front guys, so with the Noble Lord in there, it's going to be approximately 30 attacks, and when you can do that at Cleave 3, that's just a way of busting your opponent's most powerful and expensive regiment in one round in a lot of cases, so that's really, really quite a fun one. All of the other regiments in the Noble Lord's Warband are things that can get a little bit of benefit from Veteran, because it gives the entire Warband free. Noble Lord, probably my favorite Warlord at the moment. I know the Imperial Officer is also very, very good, but I just love the Noble Lord. So Noble Household Knights get the +1 clash, Mounted Squires get the Tenacious against shooting, which is quite helpful. Men-at-Arms don't really get very much here, I think support too, but no biggie. Theist Priest, so that's what's really allowing you to have the Theist subfaction in there. So I've popped the Priest in, and to give the entire Theist list, Theist regiments, Blessed for 1 turn. Sicarii, I mentioned this last time, they're not my favorite. I think that Sicarii are sort of the middle ground between Men-at-Arms, which I prefer, versus more expensive stuff like Household Guard, Gilded Legion, which I also prefer, and they're not very comfortably priced at 160. They are sort of crying out for a much larger regiment of maybe 6 to 8, where the support 2 kicks in, but even then the support 2 is just not as strong as the support 3 from the Household Guard, so I kind of prefer that. So in future I am going to be running just a basic militia or militia bowman with the Priest, not the Sicarii. I'm planning on ripping them off their bases and putting them on a diorama I'm creating to represent the Archangel. More on that soon. It's going well. Chapter Mage with School of Water, I just find that so effective at healing this big block of Household Guards. It does not have scaling on the heal, and you can quite reliably bring back a stand per turn, and that's where she just becomes her weight in gold, right? She's worth 80 points herself. Pulling back a couple of 40-point stands of Household Guard is very easy, or healing back some of her crossbowmen so that they can score regiments, score on objectives in the late game, because, again, Relentless Drill gives you +1 to seizing if you have 4 or more stands. So even if you're lights, you could do it. The Noble Lord on the horseback with the other knights here, I find this is quite helpful because he's, again, giving you the bubble of 8 inches of re-rolling 6s on clash and defense. He's got Tourney Champion for the +1 impacts, and Caledburn stacks with that quite well, because if he's able to go in and do 5 impact hits, and they're re-rolling the armor saves on those, and then you clash and they're re-rolling the armor saves on those, he's just getting quite a lot of mileage out of it. So Caledburn, I think, is a very good item for the Noble Lord himself. But the idea of this list is you've got the Priest giving Blessed to just about everything in one turn, and then there's a lot of Noble Lords to give you the 8-inch bubble, and that's why we've gone for this final Noble Lord here, and just your basic humble unit of 3 Militia. Parabattle have done well. I never thought I'd see the day that you actually consider taking basic group of Militia, or even a large group of Militia with other characters other than the Priest, but they're actually quite handy. They're so cheap, and of course this regiment can score because of the Noble Lord being in it for the 4+ stands. And the thing about him is that you get this regiment so cheaply, and he just projects yet another 8-inch zone of rerolling 6s on clash and defense in close combat, which can affect the knights, it can affect the squires, it can affect the men-at-arms. So just having this little guy sticking around is useful. And if your opponent just ignores this regiment, you can get off a really good charge here, where he's got, obviously he's going to take Weapon Master, Graceful, Combatant, so 6 attacks, clash 3, goes up to clash 4, cleave 1. Rerolling the 6s, he can still get some damage done, so quite happy with this list, other than the Sicarii, of course. So my opponent making his comeback with Old Dominion, he's deciding to just have a play around with double Kataphraktoi, double Kheres, just trying to run something a bit different each time. I think that the Mounted Strategos is fine. Very good stat line for any kind of character, very great at doing duels and challenges, and Aventine armor is just such an amazing ability for Old Dominion. You really want to keep the Kataphraktoi around and just slog with the late game. And of course Strategos, best supremacy in Old Dominion. Probably best supremacy in the game, if you ask me, so you want to take the Strategos wherever you can. Hierodeacon and the Cultists, getting them on early for a very early Dark Supplication, and the 4 Caryatids. The Caryatids are a bit questionable here, because I think that this is a list that kind of needs some sort of a Praetorian block or something that can actually tank for a little bit, that they can hide behind. Otherwise you risk letting them get into combat where they're not going to shine. Archimandrite, I think this is the second best character you can take in Old Dominion. It's Strategos first, Archimandrite second, and the Ghosts are always really good. So just 1 Kheres, 1 Moroi. A lot of lists we're seeing with Old Dominion these days are taking multiple Kheres, multiple Moroi. That's the way to go, but we're playing around with just these ones today, Kheres and Kataphraktoi. I think the Kheres are kind of fine. I mean, I think they need a little bit of a points reduction, but if you can keep them alive, as long as they get a few rounds of shooting off, they're good. And of course they can score and very fast, quite maneuverable, especially with the Strategos' supremacy ability. Cool, so let's charge through this game, shall we? So this is the setup. You've got 3 forests, the green trees that have the green foliage at the top of the canopy, those are just impassable, and you can see the double zones there. So I'm coming on at the start with a lot of lights, actually. You've got the longbows, squires, militia with the noble lord, and the mage with the crossbows. So trying to roll up as many of those as I can to start us off with. This is all I've managed to get to begin with. 2 characters, 2 regiments, plus the longbows to begin. Opponent just bringing in the 1 light that he's got, so that's the cultists coming on with the Hierodeacon to do the Dark Supplication, and I'm bringing on some longbows, not really opposite them, but opposite this objective here, where if I can come within range of it, then anything he puts onto it can get hit by the longbows, and that's how they're setting up effectively. He does have 1 other light unit, which is the Moroi. They're coming around the left-hand side, so using translocation at tier 1, not that reliable, but it can be done. And they're just going to swing around the left-hand flank to try and keep me off of this other zone here to the other side. Bringing in the Noble Lord, of course, a lovely little kit bash of the sprues involving Household Guard and Squires and Hunter Cadre. I'll show you another picture of him a little bit later, but he's in this little mini unit of Militia. And that's how we're looking at the moment. We've got the Sorcerer, the Mage rather, in the crossbows opposite the Hierodeacon, hoping to shoot them. I forgot that they have loose formation, otherwise I might not have done this, but sadly, early game Old Dominion's quite good against shooting because Moroi and Kheres and Cultists all have loose formation, if I recall correctly. Let me just double check that. Cultists, loose formation. Kheres, loose formation. Moroi, loose formation. Geez, okay, so yeah, a bit of a rough ride for the Expos. So turn 2, we are joined by the Theist Priest and the Squires and the Sicarii and the Household Guard and another Noble Lord. A lot of mediums coming on. So my opponent, moving on the table with one Legionnaire unit behind Moroi to the extreme left-hand side, and the Hierodeacon actually moving forward. Not sure if I love this play, but again, loose formation. He does have a nuke of his own and will threaten anything trying to come to the center of the board. So, yeah, it is what it is. The Centaurs just using the reinforcement line to double march onto this objective, which is quite a fun one. I'm not too sure if he actually managed to get them there after this. Let's just check the next photo. Yeah, I do think he managed to double march onto the objective somehow. Importantly, allowing him to score and get an early lead. So that's what's going on there. Over the extreme left-hand side for me, the Squires moving up, expecting to be facing the Caryatids here. They have the Forest to help them out, and they have Tenacious against shooting, so this is a harassment effort. It is indeed the Caryatids, not quite able to get into range of the Squires, so they're double marching onto this hill here. At least one stand hitting the hill, and they're going to be able to get a bit of shooting done onto anything that approaches that objective there. So this is the Theist Priest plus Sicarii. They are coming in opposite the Centaurs, and I feel that they will be quite good against the Centaurs here because they have evasion, and there is a forest there, and they have the extra speed from Divine Purpose. So if I can get them into combat with the Centaurs and beat them, then that becomes a much easier prospect of taking that zone. I will have to contend with the Moroi, obviously, and the Legionnaires. The Moroi might even be able to translocate over top of the Centaurs. Depends on the space and the positioning there, but that is one possibility. So they do have a crack at that, just teleporting over just to screen the Centaurs, and that will mean it's Moroi versus Sicarii. Not really the worst matchup in the world for me, but the Moroi are kind of dangerous. So that is the positioning that we're seeing out of that. Finally, the pride and joy of my new army, really the Halberdiers here, the Household Guard, just lined up in a 3x3. It's just so satisfying to pick them up and put them on the board. If you look closely, you can even see a piece of square black plastic underneath them that I'm using for a movement tray, you know, just to move them around more easily. So that's a nice little close-up of them there. Just such a cool unit, and I think a very effective unit on the battlefield also. So my unit of Militia moving into this forest here where they are relatively safe against the Moroi, the Centaurs I'm really talking about there. What I'm hoping to be able to do is win the roll next turn and charge the Moroi in the flank and just hold them up and prevent them from attacking the Sicarii, getting a little bit of damage done in the process. Then the Sicarii can charge the Moroi and wipe them out, and then the following turn will go after the Centaurs. So that is the positioning there, closer to the end of that turn, really hoping to get the jump on the Moroi with the Militia in the forest. Everything else just moving up towards the center fairly slowly. All right. So what we're going to do at the start of this turn is we're going to go for the Militia first to charge the Moroi or the Centaurs, and then it's going to be Theist Priest and Sicarii going in after that. Everything following that with the Squires going last just because they don't want to sort of move into an easily shootable range of the Caryatids before the Caryatids have activated, if that makes sense. So we do get the roll here. The Noble Lord gets charging into the side of the Moroi. These are just Militia. They don't do particularly well, so a couple of wounds done to the Moroi, and then these guys are just going to be sitting there. So that's what's going on like that. The Theist Priest is then able to cast some spells, possibly Blessed or Holy Fire, and then starts moving on in here, just charging the edge of the Moroi. Not able to get that much damage on them because the Moroi lost one stand against the Militia, so that's fewer stands that I have making physical contact. We do have support 2 here, but of course he doesn't take resolve checks, so in this situation we haven't actually broken through. There's still a couple of stands, a couple of wounds worth of damage on the Moroi stand that's left at the end there. Okay, we then have the cultists, which can move up, and they can actually shoot at the militia, doing a bit more damage to them. And even the hierodeacon has the option of hitting them with a spell. I do have spell interference with the Theist nearby, but this does hurt the militia quite badly, leaving me with only the command stand left, so the character will go down if he takes much more damage. And of course the centaur is able to shoot as well. So we're going to move up with the Mages unit and the crossbows to fire at the cultists, but again, they have loose formation, so it's very hard to get much damage onto them. Archimandrite showing up now into the middle. This is right next to the Caryatids. He's going to be moving towards that central zone opposite the Household Guard. The men-at-arms are now arriving between the mage and the priest's unit. These guys are going to go into the forest, then they're going to try and bully the way through to the hierodeacon's unit and take that out, or maybe just clip the zone and score with the edge of a stand there on the zone if needed. He's brought in a regiment of Legionnaires behind the centaurs. Now, it looks like bad positioning here for the Legionnaires, but bear in mind that their Memories of Old gives them +2 seizing, and the really annoying thing that they can do here is they can just come in right behind the centaurs, just clip that zone, and it's going to mean there are so many Old Dominion stands seizing that zone. It's going to be a long time before I can overtake that and pull it back, and if I fall too far behind on scoring, then in the very late game he's going to be up to tier 4, his units are going to be much more effective, and I could possibly lose that way. So this is actually quite a concerning problem. Here's other regiment of centaurs just coming in here opposite my squires. I'm fine with that. These squires are tenacious too against shooting, and they're not the most valuable regiment in my army anyway, so happy to see them spread out like that. Over here, we've got the Noble Lord plus the 3 Household Knights riding in behind the Sicarii. This is a bit of a questionable move, and I had to really think about whether this was really the right play, but the idea is that in the following turn, they can march over and charge the centaurs in the flank, which would do crippling damage against the centaurs because the Noble Lord has got Caledburn, it's got the Tourney Champion upgrade, and the Knights are veterans. So it would be pretty strong. It also means that it puts pressure on the Legionnaires behind the centaurs. They're not going to be very good against the Knights because the Knights reroll 6s, have defense 3 plus shield. So this is likely to draw some more deployment on his side of the table to try and counter what I'm effectively doing here. Another little glamour shot on the beautiful Noble Lord and his boys. So, Squires over here, not planning on really doing too much. Yeah, they're facing off against 2 ranged units. Over here we have the Household Guards double marching towards that zone. Can't quite get into contact with it, which was annoying, but they are effectively going to just be bullying through their main objective there, and if he brings on Cataphracts, that's fine. We have the Mage nearby to start healing back the boys, so I'm happy for him to try to counter-deploy this as hard as he can. Looking over here, he's got some Kheres showing up. These guys are pretty late to the battlefield, but just moving in behind that forest there. They will be kind of annoying for the Household Guard because they will do a fair bit of damage once he builds up to tier 3 and once the Strategos uses the Supremacy ability, etc. Over here, so the Centaurs and the Caryatids have activated. We can now move in with the Squires. These guys will be in a position where they can charge either the Caryatids or the Centaurs and just sort of hold them up for a bit and take some of the attention away from the Household Guard. Now, over here, my opponent has decided to make a counterplay against my Noble Lord by bringing in the Cataphracts plus the Strategos on the Cataphract unit here. This is a pretty bold play. It means that if I attack the side of the Centaurs with the Knights, he can charge my Knights in the flank, and that will get the better of me quite easily. If I double charge, or if I march charge, past the Sicarii at the Cataphracts with the Noble Lord, it's going to be a bit of a grind that the Strategos will eventually win, unless I roll very, very well with the charge damage. but that will tie them up for a bit, allowing the Sicarii and the Theist priest to bowl over the Moroi and destroy the centaurs. Note that I have lost the Noble Lord with the Militia at this point. They have been targeted by the Centaurs and the Higher Deacon and the Cultists, and they weren't that strong to begin with, so that was the end of them. But this is the really key part of the game here, where the interaction of these 6 or so units on the photo here are going to be quite crucial. So zooming out, you can see on the right-hand side, sadly, not being able to kill the Moroi cleanly has left me in a situation where I'm not going to be able to charge the Centaur straight away with the Sicarii, and I have to move past the Sicarii with the Knights to be able to get to the what do you call them, the Mount of Strategos. So the positioning is a bit ugly there. Towards the center, I'm not too afraid for the Household Guards. I've got the Mage and the crossbows there, ready to pick off some of the cultists and possibly moving the men-at-arms onto that zone, but he can get to the edge of the zone with the Legionnaires with their members of the world, which will mean that he will stay ahead on scoring, which, again, as I mentioned, it's a concern. So we're this is a list, by the way, that has no heavies, and so we're bringing in some more of the mediums. We're getting pretty much the entire army on at this point, but the first card's got to be the Mounted Squires because they want to go after the Centaurs or the Caryatids. Then we're going with the Priest and the Sicarii, hopefully to cast Holy Fire on the Moroi, destroy the Moroi, and then charge the other unit of Centaur Kheres. And we're going with Household Knights last because that may well be the Noble Lords unit that wants to charge the Kataphraktoi, hopefully after they've activated. Alright, so this is the Supremacy turn for the Priest. Doing this because we want to do maximum damage to those Centaurs, and we want the Knights to benefit from the Heavenly Blessing and the Divine Purpose as well. That's what's going to give them enough speed to get through there and charge the Kataphraktoi. This is also going to give Blessed to the Household Guard as well, and the Squires, so it's a really good time to use it, I felt. Unfortunately, though, my opponent has gone first with his Centaurs and charged my Squires, but luckily I do have Blessed, so this was able to help me keep the Squires alive. The Squires then activate and attack back and do a bit of damage to the Centaurs, so a bit of a standoff, and I'm perfectly happy with that, to be honest. Over here, we have the other Centaurs, which can do a bit of shooting. They are reforming, and they're forming a line now, giving them enough space behind that for the Legionnaires to move on to the zone. So we now have the Priest activating, able to blast the Moroi with Heavenly Fire, or whatever it is. And then over this side, we've got the Caryatids going on to the Squires with their shooting. Of course, Tenacious is helpful here, but not helpful enough to avoid all damage. And the Squires do take a bit of hurt from this. Over here, we of course have the Morois destroyed and the Priest able to move, onto the zone. Really, he's got 3 stands there touching the zone, and we might be able to fight against the Centaurs next turn. But quite crucially, the Knights have a clear path now past the Theists, so they won't count as an obstacle because they're not engaged with any enemy regiments. As predicted, the Legionnaires now move on to the zone. They've got Memories of Old, so technically he's got 5 stands touching the zone, plus the additional ones from the command stand, which means that he's still going to keep scoring that circle, which is it's really bad, to be fair. Mage now firing at the Higher Deacon is still not getting very much damage done at all, thanks to loose formation, so very irritating. The Mage now comes up, the Higher Deacon comes up and is able to throw a bit of a spell onto the Mage's unit. There was one moment in this game, and I'm not too sure if it happened on this particular turn, but my opponent rolled really, really, really well for the Higher Deacon's nuke. So it has this thing called Black Flame Coruscation, 1 hit per success, and plus X hits for the empowerment pool of the Dark Power. I think this may have been the Supremacy turn. So when you're pre-6, if you cast Black Flame Coruscation, you're looking for 3s, it becomes 2s against the Mage's unit because of spell interference, but then you get the bonus hits from the Dark Power pool. And the problem with the Mage's unit is that the crossbows are defense 1 and they're resolve 2, with the Mage not really boosting their resolve very much at all. Boosting it by nothing, and we had a turn here where the entire Mage's regiment got wiped out by 1 attack, and I was just slapping my my forehead, like, damn, like, I needed the mage. She was actually quite an important part of the game plan because she attracts attention, and she does heal back friendly units, and she can score in the late game. So she's kind of like a pretty important card that I need to play, but the Hierodeacon absolutely nukes her, which was extremely lucky, and I felt very salty about that, but it's what it is. The other positioning here from the longbows, it's just been a bad game really for them, because I was expecting him to be a bit more aggressive on this circle. And he's not brought forward anything, to be honest. These guys would have been beautiful on the opposite flank if they'd been able to shoot at the centaurs or the moroi or whatever with arcing fire, and do that pretty much every turn. But I've deployed them effectively in the wrong place, or my opponent, to be fair, has avoided them successfully and correctly, and left me with a regiment here which costs a bunch and is just doing nothing this game. So that is a pain. That's not great. Over here, we have the knights marching and charging the Strategos' regiment. These guys are Clash 3 with a bunch of Brutal 1 impacts, and of course the character himself has 5 impact hits with Caledburn. Up against the Aventine armor and the defense 4 of the guys here with no resolve checks, obviously taken by Old Dominion, and it does do some damage. I killed one stand, did some wounds, and when he attacks me, I do have Blessed, so not going to lose any knights, and then it's just going to be a grind, turn after turn after turn, and the hope here is that the Sicarii will be enough to destroy the Centaurs and the Legionnaires. You guys have to appreciate here that part of the idea of doing this and charging with the knights is that I was going to have a perfectly good chapter mage nearby to actually start shooting at the things that survived in that zone and put healing on the Sicarii, etc. But that's just not going to be the case. So, desperate times. Another great little photo here of the Kataphraks attacking me back, etc. So, yeah, bit of a brawl proceeding right here. Now, looking out over the battlefield, we have the men-at-arms going in against the Hierodeacon's unit in the center. The Sicarii really need to get the charge off on the Centaurs to destroy them, but he's got a perfectly good unit of Legionnaires camping in that zone with Memories of Old that I'm just not going to be able to deal with for a couple of turns. We have the other knight regiment towards the center, and in the far distance there you can see that the Household Guard have actually charged against the Creatids. So, we have the Hierodeacon activated, the other Kheres attacking the little objective there. Over here, we've got the charge with Divine Purpose into the Creatids. Thinking being that the back stand, like the very far end of that Household Guard regiment, is still on the zone. So I'm finally picking up some points, and the Creatids should be pretty easy to beat in close combat, and then we can go after the Hierodeacon's unit. But I need to start putting some points on the board because he's just been running away with it on the other side of the battlefield. Over here, trying to do duels and things, which the Noble Lord is declining, and then the Kataphraks are attacking the regiment there. My knights, just centrally positioned. These guys could go after the Hierodeacon, but because I've pushed very far forward with the Household Guards, these guys are probably going to be wanting to just drive over here and camp in this zone eventually, because I don't really have anything else to score that zone apart from this unit, and they are kind of preoccupied, and they will start to lose stands very soon. So he's brought in his other unit of Cataphracts. They are positioned so that they can charge my Household Guard in the flank. The Household Guard are a bit far forward, and this could be painful. To be fair, though, the Cataphracts, when they're not supported by a character, they don't do a world of damage. They are more about just bluntly surviving in the late game. And if they do charge me, if I crack the Elysian Fragment in the following turn, I can split my attacks between the Cataphracts and the Creatids, and that becomes a really high-value play, so to speak, even if I've lost a couple of stands of Household Guard. The supremacy turn there, the passive supremacy from the Noble Lord plus Elysian Fragment and everything else should be really valuable. So, here we are. That's close to the end of the turn, and when we go into the next turn, obviously what I want to do here is draw the Theist Priest first, cast Holy Fire onto the Centaurs, or Blessed onto the Sicarii, and then charge the Centaurs. Then we're moving through everything else, the Household Guards, the Knights, the Squires, everything else through the game. Okay, so here we go. Sicarii straight into the Centaurs, swinging their big swords, and doing a whole bunch of clash damage onto the Centaurs. Great little picture. Over here, the other centaurs attacking my squires, killing all but one of them, really. So one guy just hanging on there. The Noble Lord and the Strategos continuing to trade blows. I'm down to 2 stands of knights. He's down to 1 stand of cataphracts, but over time, it just becomes harder and harder for me to do damage because I'm sort of running out of supremacy abilities and sort of one-use abilities that I can use, and he's got Aventine armor for Tenacious. Over here, the men-at-arms doing quite a lot of work here, bashing the Hierodeacons unit and really making them pay. Over here, we have the the one remaining squire rallying and trying to hold the line against the centaurs, of course. He's not dead yet. My opponent, unfortunately, with 1.5 centaurs surviving against the Sicarii, are able to attack back, and this prevents me from really getting onto that zone and starting to score. It's just not happening, so these guys are doing a bit of counter damage. We have the Hierodeacon trying to get a little bit of hurt onto the men-at-arms here with, his various spells, but they are defense 3, so fairly robust against that. Kheres continuing to go after this objective for some more points, pulling Old Dominion even further in the lead if they can destroy this. Alright, Noble Lord, using Elysian Fragment, and he hasn't attacked them yet with the Cataphracts. Part of the reason for that, mind you, is that he felt like if he just charges the Cataphracts in the side there, I'll flank him with my knights, and I'll be on the zone with the knights, and it's just an overall good position for me to be in. So we get to the point here where the Household Guard can actually use Elysian Fragment and just go to town on the Creatids, wiping out all but 1.5 of them. So I was expecting more damage. Note that I've also reformed a little bit because I don't need to use Inspire. The Household Guard get Inspire automatically from the 100 Kingdoms global ability where if they're veterans and there are 5 or more stands, you just count as being inspired. So I can move a couple of stands across with combat formation, and the thought here is that this stand at the back here can stay on the zone, scoring points, and the front one blocks off any kind of flank charge from the Cataphracts, and I'm still going to be able to wipe these guys out in the next turn and then go after his Legionnaires through there. So that's the thinking. Still going between the Cataphracts and the Household Knights over here, but eventually I'm going to lose my regiment. He then activates the other unit of Kataphraktoi, and they are charging into the front of the Household Guards, and therefore not able to get as much damage done because only two stands are touching. Archimandrite, there is a bit of a gap, unfortunately for me, between the edge of the Caryatids here and the edge of the Cataphracts here. So you can see that from this point, he can actually draw a line through there and hit me with a nuke spell, which was really irritating, doing a bit more damage to the Household Guard than I would have liked. Noble, no, not Noble Lord, the longbows moving forward. Able to shoot at the Kataphraktoi. Not able to do that much damage, though. These guys really more of a long game unit that have to sort of pepper you over a long period of time. Just weren't able to get a lot achieved there. So we are having to move the Household Knights onto the zone because I've lost a couple stands of Household Guard now, and they're no longer touching the edge of it over here, as you can see. So the Household Knights have to come onto the zone to pick up some points, trying to keep me in the game that way. Now, my opponent, seeing a really good opportunity here, is reforming his Legionnaires so he can flank charge my Knights to stop them from coming around to engage with the Centaurs later on. And he can do this while still having the Memories of Old ability to gain more plus seizing stands onto that zone. So this is actually quite a good move here from the Legionnaires. Cataphracts, still hanging in there. They've got like 2 or 3 wounds left, so if I have one attack on them that does enough damage, especially with Caledburn to finish it off, and the Strategos goes down, that could be a win for me because I'd be able to get the zone in the long run. Alrighty, so what we're going to do here is we're going to try go for the Noble Lord and the Household Guard first. They're going to simultaneously attack the Caryatids and the Kataphraktoi and then charge the Hierodeacons units. So the Archimandrites units. That's the plan. Then we're going into the Priests, Sicarii, then we're going into the Knights. So that is the overview of the battlefield. I am well down on points, unfortunately, but we're sort of only coming into the halfway mark of the game. So if I was able to actually break through on one side, especially the right-hand side, I can just score there for the rest of the game and possibly pull it back, because the Household Guards are going to clean up very soon on that flank. So the Noble Lord under attack here by the Strategos and is able to hold out just barely. We then have over here the other Noble Lord with the Household Guard, really wrecking the Creators at this point. Just able to swing some really heavy halberds onto them and take them down. Over here we have the Legionnaires charging the flank of the Noble Lord's unit, but these guys are just so pathetic in close combat, and because I've got Defense 3 with reroll 6s, I was able to shrug off all of the damage miraculously here from the Legionnaires' little assault. So a good play from my opponent, but good luck for me to stop that from happening. We then have the Sicarii attacking against the Centaurs using Blessed or using Holy Fire. I can't remember which one it was, but able to wreck these guys pretty easily and then charge into the Legionnaires so that next turn we can go after them. But notice that at long last my knights have been taken down by the Strategos there. So it's going to be purely down to the Theist priest to try and break through these Legionnaires and charge the Cataphracts and beat them. Otherwise, I'm probably going to lose here. So that's what's happened. Note that there was still a clash action because the priest was able to holy fire the centaurs, actually wiping them out, and then the Sicarii were able to charge in here that same turn and destroy 2 stands with the Legionnaires. So this is what gives me a chance. If I'm able to kill those Legionnaires with a Holy Fire next turn and charge the Kataphraktoi and kill that last stand of Kataphraktoi, the character will go down, he'll die fighting, I'll take some wounds onto the Sicarii, and then I'll basically win. So it's close. The Kheres going against this objective, I think they finally managed to kill it. And the knights just moving to the left. They are just going to shimmy to the side here. So they were around here. They're just going to move towards that, staying away from the Kheres and keeping all 3 stands in the zone. I just need to rack up those points. It's just so critical at this point. Over here, we've got one surviving stand of men-at-arms going after the Kheres just to try and tie them up a little bit. They have victoriously defeated the cultists and the Hierodeacon. 2 wounds left, just going in there to buy a bit of time. Longbows shooting over there against the Legionnaires, etc., against the Cataphract, but again, their impact on this game has been minimal. And over here, we've got 1 wound left on the Kataphraktoi, so I can't quite go against the Archimandrite. Archimandrite just nuking me with another spell. He thought about healing the Kataphraktoi back, but realistically, that last figure is not going to survive against 1 round of clashing from the Household Guards, so next turn you can expect them to clash the Kataphraktoi and then charge the Archimandrite's unit, right? So this is where things stand. This is approximately turn 6, but I think the crucial thing about this situation is that even though I'm behind on points, if I win the roll and the Theist priest hits this regiment with a Holy Fire, it can kill it. There's no spell interference. I can destroy it. And then the Sicarii charge that unit there. I've got enough Cleave 1 attacks there, especially with support 2, to be able to do the last couple of wounds required on that regiment. This character does die fighting on this regiment. I start scoring, and that's going to be like another 4 turns worth of scoring. And over here, I've got enough stuff, if you count the Household Guards and the Knights and the Longbows, to keep these 2 regiments off the zone, basically. So that's what allows me to win, effectively. We have the Legionnaires just reforming, getting into a position where they can just try and buy a bit of time here against the Household Guards. So based on that play that I just explained, we have to win the roll. It's so crucial. We have to win. The Theist Priest has to go first, Sicarii next, everything else not too critical. But I did not win the roll. We have the victorious Strategos on the mounted steed there, charging in against the Theist Priest units. And he's just getting a charge, and he's getting a clash on top of that as well, and he absolutely massacres the Sicarii, and they just get wiped out, basically. So when you end with this situation where you've got, like, 1 stand left with a wound taken on it, and The opponent's still got a couple of things there. I tried fighting back, but I just couldn't achieve what I wanted to achieve, and I lost this unit. And that, my friends, was the end of the game. So it was a close game. I stood really a chance right through to the end. I just feel like my overall positioning of units wasn't great this game. My list also wasn't optimal. I didn't like the Sicarii, I didn't like the Longbowmen. I have a really good idea for a list next time once the Archangels are up and running. But this was just a really good, fun, quality game. Like, it was really good game that felt like it came down more to player performance than it did to dice rolls or army balance, which is always what you want. And I'm absolutely loving that Household Guard unit. They could have done more this game, and I'll support them even better next time. But yeah, just having so much fun with Last Argument, guys. Hope you enjoyed this one, and we'll see you again soon.